Welcome to part 2 of the Chase Bank lending changes. In this video, I'm going to show you why strategy matters more than ever and some possibilities for you with Chase if you're planning on applying to some of their business credit cards. I'm going to explain the business relationship manager tiers. So if you're unaware of the business relationship managers, they have multiple tiers and what that involves. And of course, the new online process and the fraud prevention crackdowns that Chase is working through right now, which could create some longer processing times. And if you're seeing this, hopefully you enjoyed your 4th of July weekend. Just hope that you understand that you live in the greatest country in the world, the United States of America, and you have access to the greatest financial system in the world, the greatest banking system in the world that has created more millionaires out of thin air than anywhere else. Nowhere else has access to what we do here. So be grateful for that. And that's what we talk about on this channel: finance, credit, business credit, and how to be able to utilize the system to your advantage. Now, if you haven't seen the first video, go ahead and check that out, part 1. What is going on with Chase? Why are these changes in place? What shifts are happening? Really what happened and why we got to this position. But let's actually jump in to this video and let's talk about the relationship manager tiers and what they are. Now, there's multiple tiers to business relationship managers that most people do not understand or don't know about. A lot of people will go into the bank, work with a normal banker, and they'll just apply through an online application for you, but they think they're working with an actual relationship manager that has a pull with underwriting, which a lot of them actually don't. So that would be an entry-level relationship manager. These are people that can help you open up business bank accounts, tell you about different lending practices. Usually they're going to push you really hard to apply to cards, but they don't really have any pull or connection with underwriting to request limits. So that'd be a tier 1 or an entry-level BRM. There's also tier 2, tier 3, and sometimes tier 4, which are typically VPs or people that actually cover multiple branches in a geographic location. So the difference between entry-level BRM and then tier number 2 is the mid-level BRM. This is pretty much why a lot of these relationship managers are now only working with the qualifications that we talked about on the last video. These ones typically deal with 1 to 5 million in revenue. They can access DocuSign applications and online applications, and they have direct access to underwriting teams. So they're able to request credit limits specifically, and they can bypass the automated system, which allows you to not have to deal with 524 on the business applications and have access to maybe a couple other lending products or applying to multiple cards at once through DocuSign applications. This is what most people work with are tier 2s. Some of them also work with tier 3s or VPs, tier 4s. But this is the typical business relationship manager that has access to underwriting and can request a credit limit. Now, tier 3, these are senior BRMs. Typically, they are actually assorted to specifically Chase private clients. So when you are a private client with Chase, you will be actually given a private BRM that you have personal access to. The difference between them and kind of a normal business relationship manager at the tier level is that they're usually working with businesses that are larger than 5 million in revenue, typically, kind of corporate style businesses, but also, CEOs in those businesses. They can invest your money for you, as well as it's more of a white glove service. So they can put together much more better multi-product strategies, multi-lending strategies, access, multiple products under one inquiry versus multiple inquiries. And so it's a much more strategic relationship, but it's also a white glove service. So Chase private clients get access to their own pretty much senior BRM that allows them multiple accesses to JP Morgan Chase, the investing side of things, as well as Chase Bank and the lending divisions. So that is the business relationship kind of ladder. If you guys were not unaware or aware of that, a lot of people aren't, but there's multiple tiers and who you can actually work with and their actual decisions and access to underwriting. So with that as well, let's talk about the new online process, as well as the fraud prevention crackdowns that I have noticed. Of course, a lot of people have even noticed this on personal card applications. Chase just wants to make sure that they're lending to people and giving people that are legitimate, that they're actually serious businesses, as well as real people. So there's been quite a bit of fraud or delinquencies with Chase. And so this automated process can extend the timeline, but they just want to make sure you're a real person. So with the new automated system, it could take longer. What happens though is the automated system, yes, it feels like there's going to be smaller starting approvals when it comes to business credit cards. It's more automated decisions, of course. So when you apply through an online application, the algorithm itself is making a decision on the credit limit based off of your relationship with Chase, based off of whether you have a business bank account, the transactions, deposits, your usage of your current cards. And of course, the most important is your credit profile, what actually that looks like, and if it's solid. Now, what you can expect from online applications is typically going to be 15 to 35K in terms of an online application, which is still really great. Chase is still an amazing bank. They're still giving high limits even through online applications. So that's better than a lot of banks in the business lending space just through an online application. So you can expect a little bit lower limits for that. but you can still get high limits. I've seen up to 40K, 50K just through online applications because of an optimized profile, because someone that has a strong relationship with them. Now, what I will say, when it comes to this process, because you're dealing with an algorithm, it's making an automated decision. So if you just get a denial, and I actually had this with a client a couple of weeks ago where they actually had a thin profile, or they're a little bit younger, but we still went through the online application because this process of BRMs not allowing DocuSigns was actually in play in certain locations for quite a bit of time, for quite a bit of the month of June. So what happened there was they actually got in a denial on the application initially. And so this is why I always say call reconsideration, because you can work with underwriting to get the approval work. So what we did was we actually called into underwriting. They said there was actually a mishap on the application, right? And then they were able to work it through to then get a 35K approval. So from denial to a 35K approval. Now, this is where I noticed the fraud prevention crackdowns and the timing and the processing of things has gotten a little bit longer. So with that, we called in underwriting initially. They said we couldn't do anything until you received a note in 5 to 7 business days. So once we received that note internally, said, oh, you've been denied. Then we called back in because we initially got that pending versus denial right away. Waited 5 to 7 days, called back into underwriting. Underwriting worked some things to then get the approval, said, yeah, you should find out in 48 to 72 hours. Then that happened, right? Another 2 to 3 business days. Then after that, we had to call into fraud prevention to prove our identity so that you could be, actually sent the approval. So that process could take long depending on where you're at. Yes, you can get approved right away and it could be quick, or it might just be verifying your identity. So it could be, right away. It could be 7 to 10 days after verifying your identity, or it could take up to 2 to 3 weeks if you go recon to underwriting, do verifying identity, and back to underwriting for approval, right? So it could be just longer processing time. So just understand Chase is going through some fraud prevention crackdowns. They just want to confirm you are the actual person that's applying. Obviously, because of a lot of fraud and defaults before, they just want to make sure they're doing their due diligence as a bank because they want their money back, of course, right? Now, the real question is, can business relationship managers still work with businesses in their geo-restricted area? So long story short, yes, they can. Like I said, the qualifications is typically 100K in a business bank account or $1 million in revenue. And this is stated revenue, hence. So stated revenue still. And it's typically still not going to be likely. Now, one thing that a lot of the BRMs that I've been speaking with, as well as a lot of the people that I know have a good service in the space as well, have found out is they just want to lend to more people that are trusted as well. So that means they're going to basically work with specific businesses that are at least 1 year or 2 years old. So if you have an older business, you're way more likely to be able to have access to a geographic business relationship manager in your state. What I also found out is that it really depends on the branch. So some relationship managers might be able to work into a local area of, let's say, 50 miles or a certain amount of branches, and some are actually going to be allowed to work with anyone all throughout the state. It really depends on the branch and how much defaults or fraud that they have specifically with that branch. So it's still up in the air for now. These things obviously can change, but yes, BRM still can work with businesses, submit DocuSign applications and online applications with people in their state or in their area. But as I said, more of the qualifications are 100K in the bank account or $1 million in revenue. Some of them want one or the other. Some of them want both, right? So it's all dependent, right? So that is kind of the processing times, the online process. I will talk about, a possibility that you can increase the 0% credit limit that you receive. But let's jump into why strategy right now is more important than ever. So if you guys are thinking about doing this yourself, 100%, you absolutely can. But what I will say is make sure that you educate yourself on the banks that you're applying to. If you're planning on just one card or you're just planning on multiple sequences of business credit cards, make sure you understand that every bank is different. The qualifications that they're looking for is different. The relationship that you have with them is different. And that can massively affect the approvals that you get. So strategy does matter if you're going to work with a brokerage or a company like myself in the consulting side of things, or helps you plan your sequence yourself. Make sure that when you're speaking to them, they're actually asking you what your plans are for the business spend, what your plans are with the capital. Because if they do not, they're probably more focused on volume of clients, which obviously pads their commission checks, but it should be quality of clients, because you don't want a cookie cutter approach. You want it to be custom to you, your business, your state, and your strategy. So you don't want a copycat plug and play system. You want to make sure that they're actually taking into account what you want to utilize the money for. And this is why Chase is cracking down, of course, now, because right? A lot of people were pushing money into the wrong hands and capital into the wrong hands, and that's why there's tons of defaults. That's why there's issues with NIAX codes. That's why there's been fraud, people submitting fake bank statements, like crazy stuff, which should be happening. And that only happens when people that are helping them out advise by it. So I don't think that's smart. But if you want consistent high limit approvals, make sure you're working with someone that understands the data points, the relationships, the different banks, and can help guide you through that through your business. Now, yes, if you guys want to understand how to improve your 0% allocation or your credit limit, I'm going to give this to you guys. Hopefully, people are going to be mad about this, but I'm going to give you guys some options if you want to do it on your own. No one else is going to give you this information, but like I said, I've always tried to provide as much value on this channel as possible to be able to help you guys win. And if you guys want to work with me directly, of course, you can reach out to me in the link down below. But this is the option if you want to increase your 0% limit. Now, this is why it's also important to understand the different banking rules and what you can do with the banks. So what you can do now, if you're stuck with an online application, you don't fit the qualifications to work with a relationship manager through a DocuSign application, is like you can still get high limits, 15, 35K. On the online application. Now, what you want to do though is apply to one of the 0% cards first, because that is the most important card, is that 0% card for 12 months. So you want to apply to that card first. You'll get that approval. And then once you get that approval, you can then apply to the Chase Business Preferred. You might be asking, why, Zach? That's not a 0% card. Well, it isn't a 0% card, but it's actually very well known for giving high limits because it's not a 0% card. Second of all, it has a freaking great sign-up bonus of 100,000 points. So if you watch this channel, you know that I talk about funding. I'm also extremely literate and smart when it comes to utilizing points for travel. That 100,000 points can be worth $5,000 of free travel for you or even your employees in your business if you want to use it that way. So what you do is you apply to that card, and then what you do is you transfer that limit over to the 0% card. So let's say you get 30K on the 0% card and you get 25K on the Business Preferred. You can actually transfer the limit from the Business Preferred from that same LLC over to your 0% card. And now you could have 50K at 0% for 12 months instead of 30K. Now, what I will say is don't just transfer everything over and then cancel that card out. Hit the sign-up bonus. I'm a big travel guy. I like travel. Why would you give up, $5,000 to $1,500 in travel when you can hit that sign-up bonus, hit the sign-up bonus, then transfer that limit over, or at least transfer that limit over and leave at least enough credit limit so you can keep spending on that card to hit the sign-up bonus. So that's an option. If you're stuck with the online process, make sure that hit the sign-up bonus, but you can transfer that limit over to the 0% card. So that is an option for you. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. If you haven't, check out the first video so you understand the changes and why they're in place. Second off, right now, of course, strategy is super important. The timing of your applications is important. The inquiry removal process of those applications is really important. Understanding your relationship with Chase. How can you prep yourself to be ready or prepared for a high limit approval? And so all of that is super important. And if you have questions, drop them down below. Remember, you live in the greatest nation there is in the world. You have access to the greatest financial system in the world, the banking system in the world. You have access to Chase at 0% cards, no other country does, right? And you have multiple access to thousands of banks, over 4,000 banks in the States. So enjoy that. Be grateful. Comment down below if you love the USA, if you have questions about this as well. And if you want to work with me directly and work with my team on how to structure a business sequence for you that is custom to your business and what you're looking for, then reach out to my link down below. I ask some questions to make sure that you qualify for a conversation, and then we can get on a call to see if it makes sense to work together. So hit the link down below. 88% of you aren't subscribed, so subscribe because I've been giving game on here for the last 2 years. Hit like, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.